Hello, I'm Demon Gund, and in this video I will be discussing strategies and topics for using hide volumes in TaleSpire. Feel free to use the links down in the description to quickly navigate to areas of the video that you care about, and let's get to it. Actually, before we get into it, I would like to personally thank all of my patrons, Twitch subscribers, and the TaleSpire community. Without them, this video never would have happened. A majority of my TaleSpire builds involve reimagining known and loved 2D maps into 3D space. Being something of a hardcore GM who puts a lot of time crafting and planning for combat, tactics, and environmental considerations, I assume module map designers are similarly obsessed about detail. And maps are the way they are for a reason. For example, the Dungeon of the Mad Mage has several chambers that make AoE spells a hazard, and the players have to plan accordingly. The purist in me wants to remain as true to those maps as I can be. The thing is, 2D maps are rarely accurate about physical space. A relevant example for TaleSpire is that walls are often the lines of a grid map with no discernible width. This brings us to what I call the double wall debate. And full disclosure, I've had this discussion with only a few builders, so I don't know how much it percolates in the mind of others. But it keeps me up at night. So why is this relevant to hide volumes? Let's dig in. As a quick reference, by double walls, I mean having the walls of your room on the outer edge of a 1x1 square so that you can have them back to back with hide volumes on either side. The cons of having double walls. Double walls add a lot more assets to your map, which could cause lag and overall general bad time on slow PCs. Bounty Rock is working on several systems optimizations right now, so this point might be moot in the future. Maps don't look as realistic. Single-walled buildings in TaleSpire, viewed from above, look like they would in a blueprint, or if you would walk through them in real life. The pros of double walls. Hide volumes are easier. You can use double walls to make sure that each room can be revealed on its own at the expense of having a bunch more assets and such. You want really easy hide volumes because without a system of notes or indicators, the GM just needs to remember which hide volumes to reveal when a room is entered. In a square house, this is not a big deal. It can be pretty easy, but in a huge underground uneven cavern, it is a nightmare. See my Glitterheim map for a reference there. One of the benefits of double walls for buildings is that you could have the outside of the building visible while keeping the interior of the building hidden. If your single walls are 0.5 widths, any detail near the wall will actually be exposed from the outside if you are using single walls. I haven't mentioned it much, but there are tile sets that have walls which are one whole unit wide. These have the same limitation in that if you do a hide volume inside a building, there's going to be a little interior tile that is exposed, which means you can't really clip things into the insides of those walls without having them be seen from outside as well. In some examples of a fireplace on the inside that shares a wall with the outside, if you tried to hide volume the inside of the building, you're going to have a hole in the outside wall of the building if your players walk around it. Or if you choose to reveal that fireplace, it's going to look strange because they're going to be walking around the building, but for some reason be able to see a fireplace inside. Another pro of double walls has to do with potential limitations for Fog of War. If Fog of War is implemented such that if you see a 1 unit square, everything in that 1 unit square is revealed, you're going to have the same problem with seeing details on the inside of a building if you're standing outside. If your outside wall is on a 0.5 width, and you have some stuff, you have a log pile, or you have something clipped into the shared outside wall, if when they see that outside wall, if Fog of War actually reveals the entire 1x1 unit, it may actually reveal the thing on the other side of the wall, but the jury's still out on how that implementation is going to be done. Now that we're finally on the same page about the necessity of double walls, Here are the strategies I use when planning for hide volumes. With the addition of double walls and room layout designed to make placing hide volumes easier, your room sizes aren't going to make a lot of sense. For example, this library in the module is 20 feet across. My version is nearly double that. In TaleSpire, token movement is much easier and in my mind more fun with bigger rooms. As written, there isn't any combat in this library, so I knew I was free to get creative with it. Should this be the case in a room where there is combat, the DM will need to take the size change into account. When planning rooms and hallways, it's important to know how players are going to progress through your map. The rooms and their doors need to be separated from one another such that hide volumes can be used to make the doors visible, but the interior of the rooms not visible. So in this instance, I know the players are going to be coming through this front door here. They're going to open this door. This room needs to be architected such that this is where our line is. This 0.5 section of the wall, our door is on the back side of it so that it can be adjacent to this hide volume, which has the rest of the room in it. So you're going to be off by one almost every time if there's a hallway like this. So then when the players go down the hallway, they're able to see this door, but not the interior of the next room. So we open that, and then we can make it all visible. When planning for this, and there's a lot of assumptions made on the order in which your players are gonna progress. In this instance, they could get a hacksaw and cut through the boards on the window or break the glass or something, and then you just kind of need to think on your feet. You're going to have some hide volumes, but they're not going to be quite right for that plan. So in the moment, you might need to tweak them a little bit, depending on what your players do. And here's a more advanced example, but basically it's the same thing. They come in the front door here. I'm going to reveal the next room here. They see the door to this hallway. It is opened, then this is revealed. This room, though, actually has kind of another hallway off here, and I decided when I first created this room that when they enter this room, I was going to go ahead and reveal it too. There's no combat in here, there's no reason for it to not be there, and so it's just, if I could group these two hide volumes together, I would, but we can't. So they walk into here, they see all of these wonderful doors on either side. Say they're going to go into the den first, and they enter the den. And you may notice right off the bat, this does not have a double wall. Despite the several minutes I just spent explaining why double walls are very important, in this particular instance, I know for certain the players will not enter this room from another way. And so, with that said, I'm able to just not put this interior wall here. Normally, if I had to do a double wall, there'd just be another wall here for this. But in this case, I don't have to, which allows me to do a little bit more detail with the storage closets here. As the players progress further, they can open this door, they'll get to this closet, and if you look at it from above, this wall on the back side of a tile, adjacent to that one, there's going to be a hide volume here. Same with this. Door is on this back side of a tile. This wall is on the back side of a tile all along here. Both sides here on the back side of a tile. All throughout here. The exterior wall outside of a 0.5, adjacent to another one. And then all along the front. And so in some cases, you will be able to find spots where you don't have to use a double wall. I think the standard should be that you do use a double wall, unless you have cases like this, where they can't get into this pantry unless they go through the kitchen. And so there's no reason to double it up there. When working with hide volumes, you will get very familiar with the hitboxes for various tiles. And there are several things you should watch out for. The first being that 2x2 tiles tend to look really, really good. I really like the 2x2 rural wood tile. But just be careful that they don't overlap your boundaries. Like, see, this is what happens when you've got a 2x2 tile on the edge of two hide volumes. Because if one of them is hidden, then if any hide volume that is hidden is touching an asset, that asset's going to be hidden. And so in this case, when the players enter this room, they're gonna see a hole in the floor right there. So it's something to watch out for. The next thing is that corner pieces, like this, their hitbox is actually includes all of this blank space out in front of them. And so if you have a hide volume touching that at all, it's going to hide it, even though it doesn't actually look like it would touch these walls at all. Similarly with the corner pieces that have the floor tile on them, if you're creating a building that's multiple floors, this type of thing can trip you up, where if you start putting corner tiles, or actually I almost exclusively never use wall pieces that have the floors attached, simply because I'm just always going to run into this problem. So I just don't ever use them, unless I'm really, really sure a room really needs some tile diversity, then I'll struggle to make it work. Another thing to note is that some asset hitboxes just don't make any sense at all. So here we have a grave marker. If you look at the hitbox for it, it is way, way, way above the top of it. Don't know why, that just is how it is. And what that means is if you've got a hide volume way up here, nowhere even near it, it's going to hide it. And some assets are just like that. So you have to watch out. That you could have a hide volume in a different room down below, and for some reason it's going to make your grave marker hidden. Up until now, I've really focused on hide volumes in relations to like a multi-floor building or something above ground where the players can be outside or they could be inside. They're going to be progressing through some sort of structure in a more or less linear fashion. Well, now I'd like to talk a little bit about caverns. Caverns are a little bit of a different creature. There's less of a concern and worry about double walls as there is creating incremental components of a cavern that can then be traversed. I'll tell you now, this is not easy. I do not recommend trying to do hide volumes with a large underground cave structure. What ends up happening is you have these individual components, and then as your players progress, some places it's easy to tell what you're supposed to reveal. Like in this case, I just need to reveal these hide volumes as they make their way down this river. In other places, it's not quite as clear cut. For example, in this section, if they come down this avenue, then I just need to remember the series of hide volumes that make that work. It's similar if they go up here, they go down by the bear cave, if they go down to this corner, or especially if they end up going down the waterfall here. What I'd really like you to take away here is that you need to be really, really, really dedicated if you're going to be doing extensive hide volumes for caverns in advance of Fog of War. It can be done. I might make a whole nother video about ways that I made that happen. But it is a little bit different than constructing them for buildings. There you have it. My brain dump of hide volume strategies. I really hope this information is useful to the community and provides tools for TaleSpire builders to create accessible boards. If you found this video useful, please like and subscribe. If you have any feedback or constructive criticism, feel free to post a comment below. The absolute best way to support me is through Patreon. My patrons get early access to boards, and also they get access to hundreds of hours of board building VODs.